Hello and welcome to this new podcast episode. I'm very excited to have a special guest with me, my bestie from since I was 14 years old, and we met in high school and we've been besties ever since. Her name is Katrina Reyes. She's a successful entrepreneur, wife, and mother. And I wanted to have her on today to show you and talk a little bit about longevity in relationships. So you're going to love this episode. Stay tuned. Hey, my name is Michelle Chung, and I'm a live manifestation expert, which means I help women manifest their soulmate live in person, offline. And I help career-driven, A-type alpha women find their man so they can have the amazing, committed, and effortless relationship they deserve. Hey, Kat. Oh my gosh,
Hey,
so excited to have
Michelle.
you here on this episode. Welcome.
Thanks so much. I was excited. So excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, we finally did it. We've been talking about this for a while and finally got the time together to actually schedule an episode in. And yeah, and you've recently just celebrated your 11-year anniversary.
11 years married and I'd say 21 years together.
Oh, wow. That's like half
Yeah,
our lives. That's amazing.
I know. I know we talk about it all the time and I've always joke about, how long it took him to propose and actually,
Yes.
for us to, make it official. But yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I'm just going to share a little bit about your background so everyone can understand why I've got you here on the show. So Kat is an entrepreneur. So she recently had some amazing success with her printing business and recently sold that and now is growing her business in a new direction and and is looking for new opportunities with investing and other different types of things. And you met Eric when you were, how old were you?
Oh, okay. People are going to be able to work out our ages now, but I guess
That's okay.
I
Right.
think it was your 21st birthday,
Oh my
21st
gosh.
or
Was
22nd
it?
birthday. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's when we officially got together, but we met a little bit before then. But yeah,
Yeah.
we were like early 20s.
Yeah. Okay. So how exactly did you meet? Because I remember I was putting out a reel about, what do you tolerate in terms of lateness of your date? And I said, oh, one friend waited like an hour and a half for her to have a third date with a guy, and she actually waited for him. And I was seeing everyone's comments come in saying, oh my gosh, that's so late. And then you reminded me that what happened in your first date with Eric. So tell us a little bit how you met and then what happened on that infamous first date you had with Eric.
Well, if I can try and keep this as short as possible because there's quite a long story, but we met earlier before, like at a party, and it took a while. We were sort of like, it took a while before we actually got our first date, but it wasn't really like technically a first date, and that's probably one like um the clincher here was actually just a meeting of friends. There was someone else that was supposed to come as well, so he was saying, "Oh, I'm on my way. I'm just waiting for this other friend." So it kept going from like, oh, I'm going to be like half an hour late to an hour late and end up being 1.5 hours. And this is the time before, I think, like before cars. So if I had a car, I would have just gone
Ah,
home.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I'm a Taurus. I'm very patient, although maybe I don't know if that's one of our traits. But yeah, I just ended up waiting.
You're
And
determined.
yeah, but you know what? Like, laugh about it now, but it was. I think I just didn't want to go home because it would have felt like a failure. Like I would have been like, oh, I got all dressed up and ready to go out, and then, I would have gone home with my tail between my legs, and my parents would be like, "Oh, why are you home so early?" Because you used to go out to stay out so late. So I think that was
Who was
kind of
that
like
friend
I would
again?
rather be out.
Was that who was that friend that I think I can remember her face, but I can't remember her name. The friend that you were supposed to have this group meeting with.
Oh, I think Lily.
Lily, that's right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, amazing.
yeah. And they were just like always late. So um, yeah, I think I went through so many emotions from like, oh, where are they, to like I'm angry and I'm like, oh, no, I'm gonna be patient, I'm gonna be cool. These are all the things that I think as a 20 something you kind of uh you tolerate. But as you get older, like I wouldn't do that now. Like there's no
Yeah,
way that wait more than like say 15 minutes. I'd be like, oh, let's reschedule. But
yeah,
I think when you're younger, you just sort of just let things go or you're not as concerned with so much with time and
Mm.
knowing your self-worth.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. But what exactly was it? You said you had this, well, it sounded like determination. You didn't want to go home with it, your tail between your legs, and your parents were like, "Why are you home so early?" But it sounded like there was something else also at play that made you kind of stay, other than determination. Can you pinpoint what that could be? Like, yeah, did you have a feeling that, you wanted to stay for some reason?
Um, I think I just maybe just didn't want to quit.
Mm,
And to be honest, I think I've always been comfortable with myself. Like
mm,
I've been comfortable sitting or going to a movie by myself or going for walks by myself. So, I was enjoying my own company, being out. So I think it wasn't too much of a bother for me. Although at the time, I think I would have felt every single minute.
mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I wonder almost if it was like your intuition that you'd listened to, that you'd stayed. And yeah, and that maybe deep down you knew that something would happen, like I don't know, making it up, but what do you think?
Possibly. I mean, I really liked him. When I think he was the first and the only guy that I ever chased. The
Mm,
previous times before, like like previous people that I'd been with, they were always sort of like they approached me. So it
yeah.
was kind of like a receiving dynamic, whereas I was like the chaser.
Mm,
So I kind of wanted, like, this is someone that I liked. So I think for me, it was more the pursuit, perhaps, that made me sort of stick it out. If it
mm,
was someone else, I'd be like, well, you're asking me to go out. Why are you, treating me like this? Why are you like, not respectful of my time? So maybe
mm.
that's one of the things that was different about this time.
Okay, cool. So it was you had like leverage, you had like skin in the game basically because you had a desire to see this through, like you literally had that desire to see this through.
Yeah, yeah. And to be honest, I haven't really thought about this particular moment that much. But I think what one of the things about it was that I think I just wasn't afraid to lose. I wasn't afraid to look like to be embarrassed. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm the girl that waited 1.5 hours for you. Not many people would have done that. Um, but I think I wasn't afraid to look like, I wouldn't say desperate, but I wasn't afraid to sort of um yeah, to be embarrassed for
Mm,
waiting,
yeah.
like yeah, I think it's like I just thought, like I really like this guy. He's really nice. He's just got a problem with time management.
Very forgiving. Yeah, yeah. No, that's nice. I like how you said you were really comfortable with who you are. And I think I've always felt that about you, that you've always attracted guys because you were really comfortable with who you were, who you are. And you showed it as well. You were very authentic and you could be vulnerable with guys and you didn't have to like show anything to avoid losing face kind of thing. So I think that's a really important thing. I think when we women, we start to care too much about what other people think about us, so I don't think you had that so much.
Yeah, yeah. I think maybe I don't know if it's just not having that the like caring about that. Well, I mean, obviously I do care, but I think at the end of the day, maybe it is an intuition. Like I know myself, and I know that I would have been like happy to do this. Um, but yeah, like you're right. Like just knowing myself and sort of sticking with it was always something that just really saw me through.
Well, that's awesome. Um, so I wanted to ask you some questions because you just had your 11-year anniversary and 21 years in a relationship that's like I feel like it's like a record these days. What would you say are like the main keys to longevity in a relationship?
Well, our relationship has gone through a lot of ups and downs and a lot of different iterations. But I'm pretty glad to say that whatever happened, we never got to the point where uh, we would fight and test each other by saying, "Oh, well, we should just break up. We should just, like not go ahead on, or just, take a break or something like that, we were always like, you know what, let's just calm down, let's just talk, let's just, come back together. And I also found that whenever we fight, which isn't very often, um, after a while we'd realize we'd be fighting about the same thing. And I'd be like, hey, we're on the same side here.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was just the language that we were using that was maybe we didn't express what we really felt, or maybe it felt like, combative, or with him, he's like, I don't know if he'll be happy with me talking about him, but he can be quite sensitive with the words that I use. Like if I'm too forceful or if I'm accusatory, he doesn't take that very well. So I would be careful to put things in a way where, I'd still get my point across, but it wouldn't be in a very, yeah, it'd be like in a respectful kind of way. And I found that it doesn't matter whether it's a relationship, a romantic relationship, or a friendship, or workplace. Like I think that is the way to go for any kind of relationship, is to understand like the person has a point. There's no point in like just really pushing hard and trying to batter people into submission, because you're only going to be met with resistance. So taking a gentler approach generally gets you a lot further than trying to really push your point and trying to show the other person like your strength by, being forceful.
Yeah, that's kind of a very masculine approach, isn't it? When we try to pass our opinions onto others. So one key to the longevity is just to recognize that what it is you're actually fighting about or discussing.
Yeah. I think, when you really get down to it, it's like you both want this relationship to work. You both want each other to thrive. And if it's just a matter of maybe not, maybe some of the ideology, the sort of the feeling behind what you're doing, it might be sort of like misaligned, even though you're trying to do the same thing. Getting on the same page is like one of the key, like, just realizing you're on the same page, is probably one of the key things to actually moving forward.
Yeah. That's interesting. Which is another question I was going to ask you. How did you know that you were on the same page? Was it from the very beginning, or did you slowly recognize that? How did you know he was the right one for you?
I think without knowing what it was, we had a lot of the same shared values. He's a very generous kind of person, not just with, like from a financial sense, but with a time sense, and also just with his spirit. Like he's a very generous kind of person. And whenever I needed help, or, he would even just like always help my friends out, like regardless. And he wouldn't sort of question things. He would be like, oh, if you needed something, I'd just help you. And I think, receiving that, I also gave that back, like, whatever you need. I think, like, when you mirror someone else's good qualities, you realize, oh, if they're doing it for me, this is what they value. So then you sort of like try to, you understand that if you mirror that back, then you're gonna have a more harmonious relationship.
Nice. And was this one of the things you recognized that you liked from the very beginning, that he was generous and he was very giving of himself and his time and resources?
Yeah. And I think that really like spoke to me. I don't think that I'm like a super, sort of independent type of person where, oh, everyone needs to pay their way. I'm kind of like a bit more like ebb and flow. Like, we pull things together and we sort of, share our resources. But I understand that it's not necessarily an easy thing for people to do these days, because, everything's so expensive, and, it can, like, the whole money thing can be so fraught with, all our previous programming and things. But I think, like, if you just have, like, say, like a joint account for general things, and you just sort of look at that, and you don't sort of look at each other and say, oh, you're doing this, or you're paying for that. Like, there has to be some point, some place in the relationship where you can test this joining together of two people. And so it should be like some kind of like neutral ground where you can use and contribute and help each other without sort of like that feeling of being judged, whether it's it could be a monetary thing, or it could be in a different kind of, like maybe emotionally or something like that. Like, if you have like a safe space where you, like, in every month you might review your relationship and say, hey, let's have an hour of just talking, and you can say whatever you want, and this is a non-judgmental space.
Mm.
It can kind of really help build that trust between you both, and it can be like a really amazing way for you to just feel really heard and seen.
Mm.
And yeah, just test to see whether or not this person will hold you if you're if you're feeling down, or if you're not in a great place.
Yeah. Yeah. Raf also recommends doing those check-ins as well. Yeah.
Mm.
That's a really good segue to what we were talking about before, and finances. How do you manage your finances in this day and age in a relationship?
Well, I think it's a bit of a hybrid, where we do have our own separate accounts and things, but we do have like a joint thing for everything that we need, house-wise. And as I mentioned, like that one is just for whatever. Like if you need to buy groceries, even if you want to go buy something for yourself, that's fine. We don't really look at it in that sense. But I think that there's an unspoken rule where it is respectful. Like I'm not going to go and pay for my whole credit card from the main account. It's just. But if I want to get a treat or something, or if I want to buy groceries, I want to buy a cake for the family. We get it from there. Anything that we need. So I think share something, but respectfully.
Yeah.
If you're just starting out, or maybe you're sort of getting serious in a relationship, and you do want to sort of test joint finances, then you could probably just try it like on a smaller level.
Mm.
Um, Going out for coffee, paying for parking when you're going out on a date, something like that, or even like setting up an account and saying this is our fun account. Like we go out and we,
That's
do have dates, so we have like adventure, like an adventure date every month or something like that. Just having that together, I think, can really help solidify the trust and the enjoyment of having something that's joint.
that's really cool. No, that's awesome. Um, I was just thinking, what would you say to women out there now who are looking for a relationship, and or those ones who've never been in a long-term relationship or have come out of a relationship that was, not ideal for them, and they're still suffering a little bit. What would you say in terms of advice or guidance?
Oh, that's a really tough one. I think that's like one of those like what is the meaning of life questions?
Get
Um,
to in this series.
look, I mean, I'm no dating expert, and I mean, I'd like to say, there's someone out there for everyone. But I think the first thing that I would say to anyone that's sort of just coming out of a relationship, or, looking for love, is just knowing yourself, like being really clear on like the kind of person that you are, the kind of person that you like want to share your life with, but also just being that person that someone that someone might like to be, like being that person that, well, this is really hard.
Do you mean being a person who adds value to someone else, or adds value
I
that
think,
you can see?
well, by knowing who you are, and being, I guess, having respect for yourself,
Mm,
can help attract a similar kind of person.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
where a lot of women might go wrong is that they don't know themselves well enough, and they start to look for ideals in society, like he's got to have enough money, he's got to have his life sorted out, he's got to have a house. And yes, all those things are important, but it becomes a very superficial world. And like you said, when people don't align with values, and you weren't quite sure what it was, and lucky you both hit it off straight away, and you're quite early in your life to do that. So yeah, when women don't know what they want in their life and who they really are, I think you can be saddled with the too much choice anxiety, right? When you have three flavors of ice cream, it's much easier to choose one. But if you've got 50 flavors of ice cream, then it becomes a bit more challenging because then you have to know out of the 50, which one do you really want? Otherwise, you're going to spend the whole day at the ice cream shop, right? I think it seems like you knew your values, even though you hadn't maybe wasn't so consciously in your mind to look for someone with values. Um, and you were able to look at things in a way of like speaking respectfully to sort out any arguments and things, and kind of just go with the flow, like to understand how you can match each other and not be too strict on it has to be this certain way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that just that real ebb and flow, and a relationship, just like, you know, so much else out there, is it evolves. It's constantly evolving. And I sort of feel that sometimes like our biggest growth comes from when we do have a conflict, or when we do feel we go through like a really difficult time and the other person's there to sort of help us out. Um, that can really help the relationship. I think when you get really vulnerable and you're really honest and you do let the other person in,
Mm,
that can really help. You see who they are. Like, see, are they someone that is here for the long term, or are they going to, run from just the fear of, they can't handle it.
mm, yeah, awesome. Um, any other words like you'd like to say to women who keep getting into the same kind of relationships, keep attracting the same kind of guys? Any thoughts on, how to break that cycle?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot from, my professional life. Like, I noticed that, and also just like from a self-worth point of view, that the certain patterns that we go through, if you're always sort of like hitting a brick wall, hitting it in this certain space, like
Yeah.
you start thinking like, what is it that I'm resisting? What is it, something that I feel that I'm not going to let go of? And I have this thing where, like, if I'm being really resistant to something, I look at it and I go, when did I have this belief? And it might be something that I had when I, like, a belief that I developed when I was like, say, 18 or something. So I
Yeah.
think I tell myself, like, am I going to let an 18-year-old tell me, a 40-something-year-old woman, what to do? Like, what does this 18-year-old know that I don't, that is more than what I know now? So I'll look at all these, like, the baggage that I had from 18 years ago, or from when I was 18. And I'll be like, well, this person didn't know anything. She didn't know, like, she didn't have this extra, like, say, 20 odd years of experience. Um, Maybe it's time to let that go. Maybe it's time to try something different. And I find that, when you try different things in different parts of your life, you get that muscle memory, and then you might try it in a relationship. You might say, oh, well, I don't normally date guys with, I don't know, blonde hair, but maybe, and where does that belief come from? Or maybe, like, someone, you had a
Cool.
boyfriend when, when you were 18 or something. So if you're sort of really looking at that and just really like go, you know what, let's just try it. Let's just be curious about it and just like let go of that expectation.
Yeah, I love
Um,
that.
you know, you can really learn something, if not about the other person, and about yourself.
Yeah. I love how you say, how can the 18-year-old tell me, be ruling my behavior, my actions, and my future? I think it's a really good way to put things into perspective. Because I think a lot of women have the idea that relationships are hard. And I was speaking to one client, and I was like, good stuff isn't meant to be hard. Like, we're told this idea that, hard work equals results. You have to work hard in your life. You have to work hard in your career to get money. And I think people have the same idea about relationships because perhaps seeing your own parents grow up, oh, they had a hard relationship. So I think, your parents are still together. They seem to have a pretty harmonious relationship. And how much of an impact do you think that has when you were growing up, seeing your parents' type of relationship?
I think my parents had a very traditional relationship. Mum was mostly stay at home, and dad was like the breadwinner. And to be honest, I don't think it was necessarily one that would survive today,
Mm,
because the dynamics are just so different.
yeah.
But I mean, it did give me the sense that, when they stay, because they stay together, that we can work things out. If this is where you really want to be, we
Yeah.
can work things out.
Mm,
And it might not be that we want to do everything together, but we're happy to live, somewhat, I wouldn't say separate lives, but have our own individual lives, but
mm.
come back together when it matters.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah,
Mm.
that's nice. Yeah, because I think, as you know, I'm doing a lot of work in subconscious programming and how important that is, to set yourself up with a good life and good habits, good behavior, and good results, and how
Yeah.
much impact that seeing growing up, if the people around you had crappy relationships, then maybe that's all you believe is possible. So I think it's that rewiring that, now I'm saying to all my clients and students, relationships are easy. Try that for a new programming and see if that works, because life isn't meant to be hard. Life is meant to be joyful and loving and having all those great, amazing, beautiful things, because that's what universe wants us to have.
Yeah, absolutely. That is such a great point. And you just made me think of something uh, around that whole idea that, yeah, it's not supposed to be hard. And I think a lot of the times when we talk to certain people, you can get into that whole uh, get into the
Trap.
yeah, the trap, the pattern of talking about talking about the bad things in life.
Complaining.
Um, you kind of like, victim, like getting into like victimization, sort of playing the victim, um, comparing, like, bad things,
Yeah.
uh, not being able to, sort of celebrate each other's wins. And I
Mm,
think sometimes
yeah.
when you get into that, when you have those kind of relationships, like if something happens that's great, you can't feel that you can share that because you don't want to make the other person feel bad,
Mm,
or you feel that you're boasting. I
yeah.
think that's one thing that, maybe, I don't know if it's the same in Europe, but in Australia, if you say how well you're doing or how happy you are,
So public.
I think it might be a bit jarring for people.
Mm.
They might sort of go, oh, what are they on about? Like,
Yeah, full of it.
yeah, like I think people were generally kind of geared towards the negative,
Mm.
and people can't take compliments.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, and even like, with in my own family, um, sometimes I used to feel a little bit bad when I asked my mum to come, like, look after my kids while, my husband and I had a weekend out together, because I don't think my dad really ever did that for her as much.
Mm.
She was always just looking after us all the time. And at first I sort of felt like, oh, I don't want her to feel bad about it. But then afterwards I was like, you know what? I need to live my life.
Yeah.
I need to be able to be happy and celebrate this life that I've built for myself,
Nice.
and claim that happiness, because otherwise, like, I'm just like, I'm not going to acknowledge it, and I'm not going to be able to feel the full force of like how great things can be if I downplay it, if I dim my light because I don't want to offend someone else,
So true.
and I think that that's something that, yeah, it happens in not just relationships, but in so much in our professional lives as well.
100%. Yep. Awesome. Oh, wow. We got so much good, juicy stuff out of this. Hopefully we can do this again sometime, in your very busy schedule. But thank you so much for being here. Do you have any final words that you'd like to impart your wisdom to everyone?
I think one of the things that I am sort of really passionate about right now is like creating like just the beautiful, purposeful relationships with anyone, like, with everyone around me. So with my, not just with my husband, but with my friends, with my kids, with my parents, And I sort of feel that if you generate those kind of relationships with everyone, you find the good and the excitement with, anyone that you come in contact with, it automatically permeates to other parts of your life and eventually to a partner who will see, like, oh my God, this woman is amazing. She is so generous and so loving and caring for everybody. I just want to be around her. I think if you just sort of like, spread that stardust around everywhere, people can't help but be attracted to you.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I've heard a lot of men say that they, found their next partner or their because they notice how they interacted with other people and how nurturing and beautiful they were with other people, which made them instantly very attracted to them. So I think that's a really awesome, awesome last thought to leave everyone with.
Yeah, cool.
Yay! Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Kat. Let's hopefully we'll get you in again and I'll see you next time. So if you have any questions for Kat, you can also DM us on my Instagram and I'll send the messages on with her. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode and we'll see you next time.